Morning, everybody. So good to see everyone's faces.
Good morning.
Hi,
Hi.
Michael. How are you?
Doing well. Um, Chuck is not feeling well today, so I'll be filling in for him.
No worries. Hopefully he feels better soon. I think a lot of people are sick.
Yeah, if I'm honest, I'm not being I'm feeling a little not great myself this morning,
Oh, no.
but still making it through.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being here.
hmm
Just keep letting a few more folks in. Now I'm gonna put a link to the agenda, the meeting packet in the chat. Awesome. Cool. Mary, how are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
I'm good.
Good.
Do you want to kick us off?
Sure, I do. The only issue is I see the meeting agenda.
I can share it.
Thanks.
Let me, oops, that's not it.
Ah,
Can you see it?
yeah, I got it. I got it. We're
Okay,
good. We're
cool.
good. Yeah. All right.
Excellent.
Um, I am Mary Harlan. I'm one of the co-chairs of this group. Welcome everybody to our quarterly meeting. And I think we should probably just take a minute to do a round of introductions if we'd like. Do we have time, Dana?
Yeah,
All
we
right,
can
let's
keep in
do
touch.
it. Let's do it. Dana, do you want to go?
Sure. I'm Dana
Okay.
Wood. I'm the mobility director for Northwest COG. Welcome, everybody. And I will popcorn it to Sam.
Hi, I'm Sam Guarino, Transportation Director for Tennyson West Village and co-chair for the RTCC. And I'll just pop it along and go to Michael.
Michael Sheridan. I am the operations supervisor for Core Transit. And we'll go to Mandy.
Morning, my name is Mandy DiCamello, Healthy Aging Coordinator in Elgin with Eagle County. And let's see, go to Sam.
Well, I went, so I'll pass to the other Michael because I should use the last name with multiple Michaels.
Hi, I'm Michael Cook with Compass Transit Consulting and working with the Town Winter Park as far as it's related to the updates on this agenda.
All right, Erwin.
Do you want a popcorn, Michael? Just a,
I can keep it moving along if
okay.
that works. Yeah, Erwin, why don't you go ahead?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Erwin Germain, founder of TradeShare, a carpool app that connects drivers and riders heading in the same direction so that they can organize their carpools very easily. And I'll pass to Erin.
Erin Fisher, Director of Vintage, the area agency on aging, part of Northwest COG. I will pass it to April because I'm so excited. I haven't seen her on an RTCC meeting before.
Hi, this is April Sigmund. I'm the Executive Director of SOAR, Serving Older Adults en Route, and we provide transportation for older adults throughout Route County.
Let's go to Jonathan Godis.
Hey, Jonathan Godis, I-70 Coalition Executive Director, and I will kick it over to Emily Williams.
Hi, everybody. My name is Emily. I work for Clear Clean Energy Economy for the region, and I will pass it to Alicia.
Thanks, Emily. Alicia Gressley, Colorado River Valley Partnership. I'll pass it to Hannah.
Morning, everyone. I'm Hannah Rauza. I'm an organizer with Western Colorado Alliance. I'm based in Rifle, Colorado, and I will pass it to Dawn.
Oh, Don, you're muted.
I'm sorry, guys. My computer crashed and I'm trying to use my phone and I couldn't get the unmute button to work. I'm Dawn Dexter. I work at RAFTA and I manage the paratransit program at RAFTA.
How about Carlton?
Good morning, everybody. Good to see everybody again. Carlton Henry. I am a planner with the town of Basalt, and I'll pass it to Catherine.
Everyone, I'm Catherine Kristoff. I'm the town engineer for Basalt, and I'll pass it to Linda.
Linda, are you on mute? Are you on? Well, if we don't have Linda, I can introduce her as she's the director for the Elected Officials Transportation Committee up in Picken County. And I will pass it to Carly for her.
Hi, everybody. Carly Reitman. I am the Healthy Aging Manager for, excuse me, Eagle County, and I work with Mandy. I will send it over to Lori Williams.
Hi, I'm Lori Williams. I am the manager of the Community and Senior Center in Summit County, and I'm here for Sam. Sam had hip surgery, and we do volunteer medical transportation. I don't know who's not gone yet, so I'm gonna let Dana deal with that. Sorry. Thanks, Dana.
Did Ann Findley go?
No, I didn't. Ann Findley with Summit Stage. I'm the planner.
And I think we still have Jason.
Good morning, everybody. It's Jason Martell. I'm the Eagle County Veteran Service Officer.
Chris Southwick.
Morning, everyone. I'm Chris Southwick. I'm the Mobility Innovation Coordinator for the town of Vale. And I will pass it off to Jonathan Flint.
Good morning, Jonathan Flint with Steamboat Springs Transit.
I see Lynn Rumbaugh's joined us.
Hi, everyone. Lynn Rumbaugh with the City of Aspen Transportation Department.
And then I should know who NWCCI is, but
That's Hope.
Hope Hunt with Northwest Colorado Center for Independence for Rio Blanco, Moffett, Route, Summit, and Grand.
Did we miss anybody?
I think that's it. Can I make a motion to approve the November 2025 meeting minutes?
Second.
I guess. Okay.
This is Carly. That helps.
All right. Sounds like we are approving the November 2025 meeting minutes. I guess we're going to move into updates and presentations. We have several presentations this morning and updates, and we're going to start with TreadShare.
All right, good morning, everyone. Can I share my screen quick? I sent a request. Okay.
Is it working for you?
Yeah, yes, of course, my computer wants extra. Okay, well, Yeah, I need to quit and come back. So never mind. I'll just present without sharing. Okay, so we have a pilot program that we started last year. I mean, now it's not a pilot anymore, but we are following carefully what's happening with Arapaho Basin, who was our first partner. We built a private carpool group for them on the TreadShare app. As a reminder, we are, for those who don't know me, we are based in Summit County. We have a carpool app that's meant to decrease traffic and carbon emissions, and it connects drivers and riders heading in the same direction so they can organize their carpools in just a few clicks. With key features such as a live reservation system, instant messaging, a cost-sharing agreement that is optional, and other features. We now integrate van pools as well, or shuttles. They act as a giant carpool, a big carpool pretty much. And yes, for A Basin, they've been using the service for about, they started using the service at the end of November, so just a bit more than 2 months ago. And the results we have are pretty encouraging. So there's a a gas reimbursement program that is all organized within the app, and it's pretty much the employer, Arapaho Basin, refunding some of the gas money to drivers who carpool to work. And since the end of November, we had about 240 rides booked, more than 8,000 miles that were saved, and that translates into 2,500 kilograms of carbon emissions saved. So this is pretty encouraging. This is still with early adopters. It's about a bit more than 10% of the staff that has used the service in the first 2 months of the launch. So we're really happy with that. Feedback is great also. It's just the feedback is that it's an easy tool to meet to meet their coworkers, and they really enjoy the incentive of the gas money that we transfer to them once a month at the end of every month. Yeah, so that's it. Just a quick update for us. From us.
Thanks, Erwin. That sounds like things are really moving along. That's great.
Just a quick question on that. Is that restricted to employees of the basin, or are you guys also looking to reach out to skiers or users of the area?
Yes, no, so it's not limited. So we also have a group for all Colorado to access ski resorts. This year, the lack of snow, we can really see the difference. Like the last winter, we had some traction and people using it. This year, it's harder. I'm trying to have ski resorts getting more involved in the communication. And we are even working in Idaho as well with several ski resorts there. But the winter is bad there too. And the communication of the ski resort, they had other priorities, I guess. So it's, yeah, but no, we're not limited to work commute. It can be for everyone in the mountain communities.
Are there any more questions for Erwin? All right. We're going to move on to Mandy DiCamillo with an update on the Eagle County Healthy Aging.
Mandy, are you on mute? See, you're in the room.
I'm here, but I think I lost you. Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay, good. There we go. Okay, well, Yeah, so this year, past year, 2025, we were working on our Aging Well roadmap for our healthy aging. And it, I know some of you were part of our advisory committee, so thank you very much for being part of that. And we met a couple times over the year to discuss healthy aging needs in our area, and it's coming to its completion. Um, it looks like we'll be focusing on 4 areas that are health and well-being, housing, transportation, and social connection. We'll be presenting this on February 10th at 2:30. If you guys would like to attend, it's at the Eagle building, but it's going to be presented to the Board of County Commissioners. Or you could join by Google Meet. We could send that out. And part of the social connection that I am hoping for that will happen this year is that we will add a third lunch day to our Elgibel site. So then we would have 3 days of lunches for our older adults. And then, Carly, do you want to talk about transportation?
Sure. I mean, I'll just jump in. So, thank you. And we'll make this brief. But yeah, just so you guys are aware, this is our third Aging Well plan for Eagle County. We had our first one in 2017, second one in 2021, and then spent all of 2025 with a really in-depth planning process. As Mandy mentioned, a lot of your organizations or yourselves were part of our advisory committee. So we super appreciate all of your time and effort. There, and we're excited. Yeah, we have our final plan that will be presented on next Tuesday, the 10th. And then just have a little bit of a TBD time to figure out when our action can totally start as far as funding some of the priorities we need to fund through Eagle County government, just because we have lots of priorities here. So our commissioners have a hard job of deciding who's getting what, and that is great. There's a lot of priorities that we can start on that really don't require funding from us at the county level. So you guys will be hearing from me about what those look like. But as Mandy said, we are really excited to try for an additional meal day at our Elgibel site. And then working slowly to replicate that for our Eagle and Minturn sites as well. And then as far as transportation goes, we, are not transit people trying to live in a transit world, and it is hard times. So really depend on all of you folks that have that expertise, especially my friends at Core Transit. We work closely with them already and hope to partner even more in the future. And then RAFTA, I don't think we were ever able to secure a person from RAFTA for our advisory committee to help us out with Roaring Fork Valley needs, but definitely you are on our radar. So watch out for that because we need your help over there. And yes, again, we are presenting February 10th at 2:30 in the Eagle County building to the county commissioners, but it is also, I have a direct live stream link that I can give if anybody would like it. That would have you join via kind of a public Google Meet chat, or we also have an ECG TV opportunity on our website. If you ever go to eaglecounty.us, it's our Eagle County government television on all the time in case you need any kind of entertainment like Sit and Be Fit or meditation or county government meetings. So it will be live streamed on the TV channel through Eagle County government as well. But yeah, we're just really excited about it and obviously are happy to and looking forward to our continued partnerships with many of you. So yeah, thanks so much.
I did put in the chat the Google Meet link, and it is, at 2:30. So any questions?
I will say I'm super excited about the plan as being a part of the advisory committee and just seeing, how we can move some transportation work forward for you all. I know you've worked really hard on it. Yeah, so hopefully the county commissioners are all all for it. I'll also include the link in the meeting notes from today too, if people don't get it from the chat.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah.
I guess moving on from us, who's next? I don't have the
Oh,
agenda.
yeah, it's Hannah Arauza with a Western Garfield County Transportation Campaign update.
Good morning, everybody. There's a lot of folks on this call, so I'll do like a real quick intro for folks who aren't up to speed on what I've been working on. So I work as a community organizer for a nonprofit called Western Colorado Alliance, and my job is to support grassroots networks of community members who are advocating for improved quality of life conditions for themselves, whatever that may be. And in Western Garfield County, there's a group of folks across several of our towns who are working towards improved transportation options in Western Garfield County. Last year, we put in a good amount of time with community listening, community survey, and also speaking directly to our elected officials at a municipal level, specifically in the towns of Silt and Rifle, to make sure that our electeds knew what a priority transportation was in our communities. It's often overshadowed by kind of issues like housing that are understandably a little more pressing and in the spotlight. This year, we're shifting focus, and I'll be supporting my community members in reaching out very much to our Board of County Commissioners here in Garfield County to keep the pressure on essentially for them to support transportation and specifically funding transportation in Western Garfield County. And that'll look like a lot of civic engagement, kind of public comment type of things, letter writing, and putting pressure on wherever we can. For example, last week, a bunch of our community members contacted their mayors directly, knowing that the mayors were meeting with the commissioners last night to ensure that transportation came up during that meeting. We're also going to be working quite a bit with the senior housing community here in Rifle to kind of get the senior folks organized, being one of the largest impacted communities who are mobility limited, but also most likely to vote and very, when they get organized, folks listen to them. So we've got a few folks that live up there that are going to start kind of organizing their community to show up in decision-making spaces and see if we can't get our commissioners on board with improving and expanding transportation rather than the opposite of that. And we're also, and you'll hear more about this in a moment from Alicia Gressley, but we're working in partnership with some larger entities and stakeholders in the area to make sure that my role in this is to make sure that community members have a voice in decision-making spaces as a group of stakeholders kind of come together to also address the issue of concern over losing some of our existing transit services, let alone expanding some of our transit services. And I think I don't have much more than that, honestly. If there's any questions from folks, or I could just segue it over to Alicia.
I think that's a pretty good segue. Thank you, Alicia Gressley. I'm representing the Colorado River Valley Partnership, a weird conglomeration of the misfits in our Western Garfield County area, which we love. We are focused on supporting pathways to economic mobility and being a hub for trustworthy and reliable information and resources. We did caveat, I also serve on Rifle City Council, so I'm a bit of a double agent here. But to Hannah's point of we came together based on her work with the community and transportation, and it was a huge, it always has been a need and an opportunity. I don't like to call them issues because I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's something that people are habitual in their commute and using their car, including myself. So it's something that we recognize is a need, but we haven't necessarily had the political will or resources available to us to put a dent in moving that forward. So that's kind of how we came together. We created, it was pushed by the change in funding that many have experienced in various different entities, including our municipalities, that the Garfield County would no longer be funding the hogback route, which is a stretch of rafter transportation from Rifle to Newcastle, essentially. Not going to go into the nuances of it. I think what we're focusing on is that we've made some steps forward, being able to bring together the stakeholders to look at viable solutions. So we're now called the CRV Transit Solutions. Our immediate focus is on identifying short-term funding solutions to maintain the critical connection for the hogback route, where longer-term options are explored. But really our focus is supporting RAFTA and the entities to find that short-term solution. We need a solution by June 2026, and that's various different outlets, including creative public-private partnerships. I can say I just heard the tea this morning that the mayor's meeting did go well last night. I don't know all the details, but the good news from that is the conversations are happening with the municipalities of Garfield County and the commissioners, and there was some great discussion and potential pathways to solutions that were discussed. So that is a win as well. Our long-term focus, though, for us is to focus on transit within our region. It has been a missing piece. And yes, we're here to find ways to get people to their jobs in the Roaring Fork Valley, but our main focus is actually transit within our own communities. Something as simple to Hannah's point of the senior community. We have challenges for them, and I use this example a lot just because it really does show how it doesn't have to be a big, grand problem or solution that impacts the whole county. We need to get into the day-to-day lives of what people are living and experiencing to find our solution. Because I think it's not simple, but it's that simple that their everyday lives. So I sit on the Senior Center Advisory Board in my council capacity, and they expressed to me, one of the members expressed to me that she's one of the only people up at the Senior Center, and I think she's about 80 years old. Her husband passed away a couple of years ago, but many of her neighbors will get an ambulance to the emergency room because that's their method of transportation. And then they'll get released and call her to come pick them up because there's no other, they don't have a license. She's one of the only ones with a license up there. And she is happy to help, wants to help. But really the reality is this could be at all hours of the day or night. It could be in various weather conditions. The current services that are available to them don't fit that need. And I think that's what we want to bring to the table as well, is how do we help our everyday residents with their transit needs? So that's our long-term solution. The good news is there are lots of opportunities or solutions in the works. We just haven't quite got there. I know Parachute, we have the Parachute Area Transit. Parachute, a town of 1,400 people and a operating budget of $2 million, has been working and for the last 5 years implementing the Parachute Area Transit basically on their own with support from Rifle and some other grants and some county support financially. But they saw the need as well and took it on. And I just want to give them their flowers because that's kind of what they do. They just know that there's an issue and find a way to make it happen, even though they don't really have the money to do so. But they're waiting on hearing back on the CTE grant of piloting a downtowner type program for Parachute and Rifle expanding on the current PAT service. I believe it should be any day now, but that would help us to pilot a program and collect a lot of information and data to then build on that potentially. So I'm optimistic. We are optimistic as an organization that the wheels are turning. I'm a very impatient person, but I know I know that we've come a long way in the last year with this, and I think there's good things to come. So we appreciate Dana's support, especially with information and connections and input. And this is an ongoing project. It's never going to be resolved. There is a tension on it though, and a lot of that has come from just a lot of the work Hannah has done and the people coming to public comment and bringing it to the attention of those who do make the decisions, because I think I'm in this every day, but my other council members are not, and we don't know what we don't know. So I think the intention is good. It's just if we just sit and not speak up, nobody's going to know that this is a challenge for people, even to the little everyday things, such as the senior member who did make comment that this is getting harder and harder for her. Any questions on that? And Greg,
go ahead, Dawn.
I do have a question for you, Alicia.
Yes.
Dawn Dexter, I work for RAFTA. One of my focuses here is paratransit, which includes Traveler.
Yes.
Is there anyone from Garfield County? Any Garfield County staff on the call at all?
I think I saw Sheila hop on.
I'm sorry, who's on?
This is Sheila. I'm here.
Oh, hi, Sheila. Well, I'm going to speak out of turn briefly. I know that the commissioners in the December meeting expressed that they didn't want to fund Traveler to as much as they have in the past. They want RAFTA to take a bigger bite of that. And in terms of like the senior that you mentioned that gets called to get rides back from the hospital, Traveler services only run from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. So holidays, weekends, nights, early mornings are not an option for people who are eligible for the Traveler. My leadership here has tasked me with kind of looking at the IGA for the Traveler and coming up with like a clean version of what we think the commissioners were asking for, at least for a starting point for all of the discussion to happen, so that we don't end up in, November with the commissioners saying, this isn't what we wanted, just to offer a draft. So Alicia, if you want to put your head together with me, if you have some input, I can show you the current IGA. I heard you say I'm impatient. Also, I am. I just am gonna be looking in the next 2 weeks at really cleaning up the old language and making it really simple to look at. And I might just hear from you, because I like to offer 2 or 3 drafts of a thing to decision makers so they can be like, well, we like this one better. Anyway, that's a lot of words for this big meeting. But if you want to get together, I can throw you my phone number in the chat.
Right, and I think Sheila would be a great starting point for that as well.
We
I'm
would
happy
definitely
to be
work
involved.
together.
Sheila does a great job. And I'm not here to say what I think the commissioners are going to approve or not. And especially with the Traveler, it is very much needed. It is a little bit of a different program to what we're focused on. We're looking at more of that interconnectedness within our whole community, and how can that help serve the needs that might be missing from the Traveler, because it is a very specific program. I think we fully support the Traveler and the needs of it. Whether you guys decide that there's better efficiencies or a way to do it is very much happy to look over and give some input, but I don't want to
no, I'd love to hear
from that.
As I'm thinking about this, I just love to hear more from you about your perspective. And
great.
I do push back sometimes when I get a message from Chad in this Upper Valley saying we need more senior transportation. I'm like, but if we do universal transportation, that helps seniors too. So I'm not saying, I want to invite your input as I try to write a draft.
Great. And Sheila, you might, do you have any more to kind of add to that?
Yeah,
I know that they just did a bit more on they amended it a little bit on the Traveler last year.
I will be at the meeting. I think it's tomorrow night with the city of Rifle for the conversation about transportation. So we are hoping to get a lot of good information that we can then put to good use. John, the MOUs are written by the county attorney's office, so maybe don't put too much effort into writing something because Heather Beatty has been tasked with rewriting the MOU into more manageable language also.
Great. Well, then I won't do that. My leadership here was like, hey, let's be prepared to offer something since we haven't heard anything yet. But since I'm hearing now that Heather's already working on it, I definitely won't put too much effort into it. Thank you for that.
I can't say she's already working on it. I said she's tasked with it. Okay. When that gets done, we don't know, but you'll get updated at the advisory board when I have more information.
Perfect.
Alicia, I just also wanted to let you know or reach out to you and offer any kind of help that I might be able to provide from that downtowner perspective. And what I was specifically thinking about is that we have a lot of data that we've collected in the Roaring Fork Valley around a lot of different components of first last mile mobility and the downtowner, specifically things like how charging a fare might work, what kind of revenue is being generated from that, how other municipalities are covering costs, and then also just the kind of data that's really interesting in terms of ridership, peak hours, things like that. So I'm happy to share. All of this is public information, but I'm happy to share what I have with you.
Fantastic. Yeah, if you could get that to me, I can get that to the Parachute Area Transit Advisory Board. They're part of our group. We're the conduit. I would say, I probably didn't say that very clearly at the beginning, but we are here to serve as the conduit to either public, private, nonprofit entities in our region. We recognize that there's a lot going on. People are very busy, so lean on us if you do. I might not have the answer, but I'll try and find it for you. So
yeah,
concierge of sorts.
Yeah, I'm happy to share that with you, and I'll send you an email that has some comprehensive information. It looks like Sheila would also like some of that information too. So I'm very happy to share that with you, and we'll be talking a little bit about it in my upcoming update.
Great. Thank you all. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much, Alicia, for serving as that conduit and bringing folks together. Also, lean on us in this group for things that you need. I will continue attending meetings and helping however I can. So thank you. Okay. It's Mary.
Hey.
Hi.
I'll try to share my screen and see what happens. Does everyone see this little? Great.
Yeah.
I have to just do it in this. There we go. Format. Yeah, is this okay with everyone to see it in this format? Can everyone see it? Okay. So this is kind of a little bit of a switch from what we were talking about, but RAFTA conducted a zero fare pilot, as everyone knows, between October 1st and November 30th. And part of my role in that was to conduct a zero fare pilot park and ride occupancy study. So essentially the project was, we knew that we were doing this in the off season, so we knew that we would see lower parking counts and some lower ridership numbers as well. But we really just wanted to kind of take the anecdotal evidence we had of park and rides either being full or not full and see see if that was true. And then also just looking at how full the parking lots were before, during, and after that zero fare pilot project. And so essentially, the reason why we wanted to do it, the kind of replacing anecdotal evidence with real-time evidence, we wanted to get a baseline for popular RAFTA park and rides. And then this is kind of a segue into a larger park and ride occupancy study. And why do we even want to do this at all? Is simply because we're realizing that we could find some cost savings. Number one, we could find some cost savings, like anecdotal evidence saying, oh, this park and ride is always full when maybe it's not always full. And then seeing how that fits in with our capital projects. So there was cost savings and things like that. We also wanted to look at how we might be able to better serve the public. So for an example, is that we have very low ridership numbers or stop activity numbers at some of our park and rides, but the park and rides are always full. And we have these rule boards up that essentially say that people can't park there unless they're taking the park and ride. But we were kind of starting to consider, well, what if some of our park and rides did have some designated ride sharing spaces so that people could use some of those park and rides for carpooling. So the data collection piece I thought it was pretty interesting. We wanted to get, number one, a baseline count of the park and rides. So when we looked at counting the park and rides, we counted ADA, Mustang, EV spots, and then blocked parking spots in addition to all of the other parking spots. And then we had to actually disinclude those ADA, Mustang, and EV parking spots, as well as any blocked parking spots. So we essentially had like a number of parking spots that we could say, well, these are the available parking spots that people could park in. And then nix out the other parking spots. We also gave condition reports of the park and rides, which ones had cycles, which ones didn't, and any other kind of pertinent information about the condition of the asphalt or if the signage was adequate. And then we used, this was kind of a new thing. I didn't understand at the beginning that this is something that is not being done very frequently, but we have in-house people on staff that are certified, FAA certified to fly drones. And so we used drones and captured some really amazing photographs of our park and rides, which I'll show here in a minute, but we essentially captured pictures of these park and rides at the determined times and days that we had scheduled. And then I was able to count how full the park and ride was on that day, just using these really clear drone photos. And then we also captured drone videos as well, just as a backup. We were unable to do this at Brush Creek because of FAA regulations and applying for permits to do that was a little bit more complicated. So we did it the old-fashioned way, which is somebody drove in a RAFTA vehicle and I actually sat on the window, like hung out of the window and videotaped the park and ride. And then we actually got out of the car and counted cars up at Brush Creek. We based the whole study on methodology used by Fair and Peers in 2021 that they used alongside a study that was in Glenwood Springs. And primarily after researching all of the different ways that you could do this, that was one that was really repeatable and one that was easy. It was just easily replicable. And to determine the times and days, we had like set weeks that we needed to do the study or set times. Like we knew we had to do it in September before park and ride or before the zero fare pilot. We knew we wanted to do it in the middle of the zero fare pilot, and we knew we wanted to do this at the end of the zero fare pilot. And so we kind of already had these predetermined times, which made things a little bit more like set and how we were going to look at it, as opposed to like doing it peak hours, peak days, peak times of the season. We knew that we weren't going to capture those things. at all times. So we used to at least capture the peak hours of the time period that we were studying. We used BRT stop activity in conjunction with CDOT Otis continuous count meters and determine the times of day within the time frames that we had to work within. Because as more cars were passing, we were thinking about how that might affect park and ride occupancy and if there would be a dip in cars passing those continuous count meters if they were going off to park at a park and ride. I mean, it's kind of an inference that we had to make, but this was exactly how the fair and peer study was conducted. So we use that methodology. I don't have any more slides, so I'm going to stop sharing this page, but what I really would like to do is show the drone photo and then some of the data that we found. Let's see if I can do it from the same. Can you guys see this next screen with some of the data?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Great. Okay, cool. Thanks. And I'll try to make it a little bit bigger so it's like. So this is some of the data that we collected, just looking at like the average occupancy of the park and ride locations. What I like about this that I find kind of interesting, so you can see kind of the September is the blue, October is orange, and then December is green. So you can see like, oh, interesting, like Elgibel Up Valley, went way up versus Catherine Store parking went down. So some of these, I would say most of these stayed fairly like consistent with each other. What I don't have represented in this data set that I had been working on and what we realized after the fact is that where park and ride occupancy went down, microtransit use went up. And unfortunately, I don't have it readily available at the moment, but it was a really interesting finding to see that park and ride occupancy and microtransit use, like the downtowner, for example, almost across all of these areas, the microtransit use, when it was high, our park and ride occupancy was low. So again, making kind of an inference there, that's kind of interesting information to see that microtransit may have some sort of effect. And particularly, I looked at it in Carbondale because we had expected the Carbondale Park and Ride to be, you can see the percentages on the left side of this table. We had expected like West Glenwood to be like a little bit higher or Carbondale even to be higher. We did expect 27th Street to be around 100% at all times. But some of these we expected to be higher. And what we found is that when I started digging a little bit, microtransit use had increased during these very specific months. So it was kind of something that we're going to be digging in deeper as to how some of the microtransit use is affecting things like our park and ride occupancy, and if that could be something that would be more cost effective than, say, expanding a park and ride. What if there was more service to those park and rides to get people to bus stops? And then the only other thing, if I can locate it, would be one of these drone pictures. So I may have to kind of close a few things out. Here it is. So then this was just the quality. Can you guys see this picture?
Yes.
Great. So these were kind of the quality of the drone photos. We were really pleased with how these came out. Just seeing, and again, Brush Creek, we did do a test day where we ended up having to, I don't know what the exact terminology is, but it's a very specific term. Like we had to like kind of sew it together, the Brush Creek Park and Ride, because we were only able, one of the rules there is that we're only able to fly 50 feet in the air, which is why we ended up hand counting cars. So these, though, we were able to capture from about 300 feet up, and they were all this clear, even when the weather wasn't perfect. The photos came out really clear. So that's all I have on this. Are there any questions? All right. Well, reach out if you have questions, because I know at the moment it's like park and ride occupancy isn't like the most exciting thing on the planet, although I found it really exciting. But I do think that it's revealing to us some interesting information that we're really excited to dig deeper into.
Mary, I don't have a. Oh, go. So whoever that was, go ahead.
Sorry, this is Jonathan Godis.
Yeah.
Mary, you're saying, maybe you look, I think you were saying maybe you look a little bit more at the first and last mile versus the cost of expanding the lots. But expanding the lots is a one-time capital expense, and then you're kind of done. And I like, just personally, I mean, I think everybody likes first and last mile versus multi-level structures or taking over more land for surface parking. But that's kind of a commitment to always doing microtransit, and that's pretty pricey as an operating cost versus a one-time capital cost. Can you talk a little bit about kind of that, what that break even is, or how that cost might be shared with the municipality or other funding partners?
Yeah, so one of the things that that I'm doing in my job is just searching for additional ways that RAFTA can help participate in funding the microtransit use in among the jurisdictions within RAFTA. And currently, we do offer a first last mile mobility reserve grant program where we are helping to subsidize that cost. And honestly, Jonathan, we haven't done that like serious cost comparison between the overall capital cost of expanding a parking lot and, like you said, acquiring the land and then doing the actual parking lot expansion projects versus the like long-term cost of the microtransit. But what we are looking at in addition is kind of those costs to the community that wouldn't necessarily have a dollar sign. Like, what does it cost to our community to expand and add more concrete and asphalt to an area that maybe we don't, people don't really want that. We're also finding that the communities that either are have a very high connectivity to transit. For example, Carbondale's connectivity to transit is 35%. So 35% of all of their rides are connecting to transit. That is a leverage for them to get funding from a variety of different funding sources. And that includes funding sources that have traditionally been kind of sequestered or, I guess, really limited to transit. And because that connectivity is so high, it opens that door for them. So that's another thing that is being kind of contemplated is, if we didn't have to put more concrete in our communities, how could we kind of increase quality of life and get people to the transportation that they need to be getting to without having to drive a single occupancy vehicle? So I don't know if that really answered your question fully, but we're just looking at a variety of different ways that this is a a benefit to the community.
Yeah, I mean, I think that answers my question. I think everybody can agree that going up 3 or 4 stories of parking garages or taking over neighboring businesses or land or open space is definitely not preferable when the alternative is increasing microtransit and first and last mile. It's pretty clear. Just one is a continual cost and conversation of funding 5, 10, 20 years out. And that's a more difficult ongoing conversation than just a capital expense one time that you could bond 20 years out.
Yeah, no, I think there's a, sorry, thought there was an echo there for a second. I think that that's a really good point. And I think that's why, one of our jurisdictions is charging a fare right now. And despite that fare being only $1, you know, they also happen to have pretty high ridership for their community size. So they're looking at about 8,000 rides per month. So that alone is helping them with $8,000 a month. Now, it doesn't sound like very much, but there's different ways that you can charge a fare for some of these rides for only certain populations and not other populations. So there's a huge variety of ways that we can also generate more funds in that way as well. And a lot of businesses are starting to sponsor the microtransit programs in the Roaring Fork Valley. So that's also been very helpful.
Mary, my only question was, and we can talk about it offline together later, but I was curious about the strength of that correlation between microtransit use being high and park and rides being lower. And do you know if there's any other data from other communities that have showed a similar trend?
I don't know at this time if there's other data on that. I do know that I thought it was really wacky that when park and ride occupancy was high, the microtransit use was low, and then that converse was true. So like that was a little bit weird to me, and I brought it up to Hannah Klausman, who was like, "Yeah, this is weird." I'm like, "Is this weird, or am I just making this up?"
It makes perfect sense to me. Why is it? Okay, so why it makes perfect sense to me is if I'm using microtransit, I don't have to warm up my car, get in my car,
Right.
find a parking spot. If I'm using microtransit to get there, um, yeah, and also some people who use microtransit might not have cars or the
Yeah.
ability to drive, so that it makes sense to me. But what were you thinking? What I guess we can talk about it offline.
I think it's weird because I'm really excited about it. I'm like excited for that correlation. Maybe that's why.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mary.
Yeah, thanks.
Whoops, where did my agenda go? I think Sam's up next. Yes.
All right, now you can hear me. Muted. Um, so we just completed a zero emission bus transition plan up here in Stonehouse Village for the village shuttle. Um, Thought it might be interesting for this group to see, especially given that we're a bit of a smaller transit agency. For those of you who don't know, the Village Shuttle, we operate just within the bounds of Sumas Village. We have an operating budget of about $5 million. We do about 500,000 rides a year. We have 29 vehicles. And we undertook, and it's also very steep. It gets cold. So we have a lot of challenges that I think reflect some other communities within the region. So I thought it might be interesting for folks to see this presentation. So why do a zero emission bus plan? Well, we wanted to first and foremost be able to reduce our emissions and meet our sustainability goals, both locally and regionally. We have pretty aggressive sustainability goals in Somas Village to reduce by about 63% by 2030 over a 2010 baseline, something along those lines. So being a part of it, being part of the town seems like an important way to go, and we believe in the importance of meeting those sustainability goals and lowering emissions. Also, if these days or when we started the plan and got the grants for it, applying for low and no emission funding through federal grants required putting together a zero emission bus plan. And we think there's a lot of good reasons for that. There was a lot of agencies early on that kind of dove in head first without much of a plan and ended up a little bit in over their head on the vehicles that they had purchased, or they were unable to complete their routes as they had in the past. A myriad of issues came up. So, and as part of that, we wanted to be able to create that realistic path towards a fully electric fleet, make sure that it is something that makes sense in Snowmass Village and is possible. So we kind of entered the plan thinking we would say, okay, we'll have a fully electric fleet by 2035. And that isn't, or 2030, or whatever the date would be. And that isn't quite where we ended up. We ended up seeing that there was some constraints that we needed to move past before we would be able to move forward with the transition. And so we really broke it down to three constraints, three sort of benchmarks that needed to be met before we would initiate our transition plan. And the first was technology constraints. We wanted to make sure that there's at least two manufacturers producing a technology of a compatible platform with our vehicles operating in North America. And I'll get into that a little bit more in the next slide, but there isn't that currently. We also wanted to make sure that we could maintain that we would maintain our current fleet until we could move to a technology that would support a one-to-one transition. So we weren't having to buy twice as many buses to do the same job. And then lastly, our facilities are woefully undersized for our current operation, let alone retrofitting them for electric vehicle charging. So we wanted to complete a facility master planning effort before we move forward with the transition plan to make sure that either our facilities could handle the infrastructure or find a location for a different facility if one existed. So diving into those technology constraints a little bit, we operate smaller buses up here in Snowmass Village. We operate 30-foot buses. There's only one of those buses currently in production that is being utilized by transit agencies in the United States. It's made by BYD. There is one other company that says they'll make one, but they've never done it. And part of that reason is that those smaller platforms, you can have less batteries, and so you have less range. And just not a lot of companies are running buses are small. Our facilities require buses that size, so we don't really have an option to go larger. We also have some other challenges with our range, just big steep inclines in Snowmass Village. We rise over 500 feet over the course of most of our routes. We also have, we get very cold temperatures in the winter, warm temperatures in the summer, which can also degrade our battery. And then you can see in my little graphic up here, one thing that came up in our discussion that I thought was very interesting was the degradation of the batteries over time. They really start out at about 85 to 80%, and then they'll reduce another 30% over their life. So if the battery is capable of 213 kilowatt hours, you're actually getting about half of that by the time you're 5 to 10 years into the bus. We took a look at hydrogen. It's just currently still not widely available, easy to get. And then we looked at hybrid or traditional hybrid or plug-ins as a good transition technology. We could start purchasing those now as opposed to having to wait until we met all these benchmarks. Some operational constraints. Currently, our operations would not support the ranges, either for our smaller vehicles that could be replaced by transit vans or our larger 30-foot vehicles. So we needed to look at reblocking or re-interlining our routes to fit with these lower range vehicles. It seemed like it would be possible, but difficult. So something that we'll need to look further into. And then our facility constraints, we don't really have a good spot for on-route charging. So we really looked at what it would take to set up charging in our current facilities. And the space that we're trying to work with just presented a lot of challenges to installing retrofitting electric vehicle charging. and upsizing or putting in new transformers and the panels that would need to go in. We're as a lot of us up in mountain communities, we're working with really constrained facilities that are multi-use and definitely not designed for electric vehicle charging. So what we landed on was a phased approach to transition. Before that phased transition would take place, we would want to do a study of our facilities to make sure that the transition was possible. Then we would go ahead and start installing our charging infrastructure in years 0 to 4, as well as purchasing our electric vans. And we would install additional charging infrastructure in years 4 to 11, as well as starting to purchase the larger buses. And then beyond that, if possible, we would take a look at building an additional site and completing our transition. With the fleet procurement, we found that we had a promise early on that electric vehicles would be cheaper maintenance wise. Really found for the most part that that's not entirely true. The fuel is certainly cheaper, but maintenance is more expensive on electric vehicles than on traditionally fueled vehicles. So looking at about $16,000 more per year on per vehicle for maintenance over the lifetime of the vehicle. And then costs are just more as well. Vans are pretty comparable, but the larger buses are $250,000 at least more than diesel buses. One of the things we looked at doing to make it work would be to reduce the size of our fleet. We currently have quite a large fleet, and we're capable of reblocking and interlining in a different way that would allow us to have less buses. So that would help us save some money, as well as looking at grants. And then the big number down here at the bottom of my slide, $2.25 million for putting in our new infrastructure for charging, and a big portion of that number, if this is something on your radar, something that your area or agency is looking to do, was in fire mitigation, about $1 million in installing sprinkler system that would be able to put out electric charging fire. Some other considerations, we have a workforce transition plan in our zero emission vehicle transition plan. Along with the phasing in of new vehicles, we would make sure to be phasing in training for our current fleet mechanics. We wanted to, again, we'll plan to implement it when these criteria are met rather than having a target year. So it could be in 2 years, it could be in 5 years, but until the technology comes along and we make sure our facility will work for the project, we're not going to move forward. And then we worked closely with Holy Cross, our electric utility, and made sure that this project seemed possible to them, and we obtained a letter of support from all of them. And then finally, our next steps, we have moved on to a town-wide fleet transition plan. All the other vehicles in the town, plows, the maintenance vehicles for the housing department and the Parks and Rec department, just looking at doing the entire transition plan. We are looking at transitioning to vans early. We don't necessarily need to wait for the 30-foot buses to be ready because we think the van technology is there for our smaller vehicles. We're again looking at that new feasibility study for our facility, and then just trying to keep up with all the local, regional, statewide, and national initiatives. Trying not to get left behind and trying to remain flexible with the plan as we move forward. So that's all I got on it. This is kind of the first time I presented on it. We just finished this up in December. So sorry if I wasn't super clear on the whole thing, but if anybody has any questions, happy to answer them either here or offline. But like I said, just thought it might be interesting for everybody to see where we ended up.
Excellent. Thanks, Sam. And you're presenting this at a couple of other conferences too, right?
Yeah, we're presenting at this as well as with a few other with RAFTA and a few other agencies at the Colorado Travel Symposium. Also probably going to present at a Transit Monthly, and then as well as at the APTA conference in Salt Lake City. So quite a few spots.
Cool.
I see Alicia had a question, but it looks like Dana might have answered it. I can answer questions in the chat because I think we're falling a little bit behind and I want to keep us moving along.
Awesome. Next up is Michael and the folks at Winter Park. What's going on?
Hey, yeah, my name's Michael Cook, and I'm working with the Town of Winter Park, Charles McCarthy, on a few different projects, but I believe the project on today's agenda is about it says, I think, Mountain to Rail. So that's either the
You
Mountain
can
Rail
talk about
project
you can
or
talk about whatever you want, Michael. Doesn't get any feedback from Charles, so if you want to talk about Winter Park specifically, go for it.
Okay, great. Well, I have been working with the Mountain Rail team, so I can speak to that. And then there's another project that Winter Park is also working on, as far as a bus service that's related to the oops, hold on, bus service that connects to the new rail service. So, really quickly, the Mountain Rail project is a project that started getting discussed, I want to say 2 years ago. And it's a rail service that will ultimately connect Denver Union Station to Craig. However, that project's broken up into a few different phases. So phase one connects Denver Union Station to Granby. Phase two is the connection between Craig and Steamboat Springs. And phase three will be that whole route that goes from Denver Union Station all the way to Craig. So really this was discussed as a few things: commuter rail in the Yampa Valley, but also allowing residents and visitors on the Front Range to access the mountains. So building a little bit of redundancy and in the transit network to Northwest Colorado and sort of help with congestion issues on I-70. It is by no means a silver bullet. It will not solve the congestion issues on I-70, and that is not the intent. The intent is just to provide other mobility options to access Northwest Colorado. And particularly to communities that are not located on I-70. So, if you're going to Winter Park, Fraser, Granby, Steamboat Springs, Oak Creek, any of those communities, you'll be able to access them by rail without adding your car to all the congestion on I-70. So it's been a really exciting project. The project will be largely funded through SB 184, which is the rental car fee, and SB 230, which is the oil and gas fee. It's been very exciting. And Jonathan Flint, if you ever want to jump in and add anything, feel free to. I don't have an official presentation or anything, just kind of sharing information. So right now, CDOT is working with their potential future operator, whereas I'm calling Amtrak because I'm not sure who else would be operating on that rail line. But they can't tell us, which I understand. But they're working with them on schedules, and until they can come up with their operating agreement and their schedule, they can't share any information with us. But that is scheduled to launch in November of 26. So that'll be that phase one service, Denver to Granby. So that's going on. Sorry, I have a few notes on this because it's been an exciting project. Let's see here. So Charles McCarthy, the transit manager for the town of Winter Park, and I have been working with Grand County and the towns of Granby and Grand Lake to create a new transit service that connects Granby with the town of Grand Lake and that west side of Rocky Mountain National Park. effectively creating a network where you can get on the train in Denver, take a train up to Granby, get off the train in Granby, get onto a bus, and go to Grand Lake and connect into Rocky Mountain National Park, to that west side of Rocky Mountain National Park, which I think is really exciting because it creates this sort of public access, or at least, not single occupancy vehicle access to both the east and west sides of the national park, which I think is really great. We have been talking with the town of Grand Lake, and they've been talking with the national park about doing a shuttle into the park. Rocky Mountain National Park currently operates some service in the national park, but not on the west side. Uh, so not on that Grand Lake side of the park. So they're also looking at how they can get people from Grand Lake actually into the national park. We do have a option that we're playing with where the bus would go into the Kawanichi Visitor Center, which is that west entrance. There's a few logistics and operations issues that we're trying to work through there. Grand Lake wants to operate a trailhead shuttle through town, so we're exploring some options with them. But yeah, that's kind of what's going on with the mountain passenger rail uh, project. There's kind of a lot of details. If anybody has any specific questions, I will do my best to answer them. But it's been a really exciting project, and I'm thrilled to death that we're going to have rail access to the mountains. It's not rail access along I-70, like we've been talking for a while, but it is some rail service. It does connect the Front Range to the mountains on existing rail. Building new rails wildly expensive, and there's actually going to need to be some improvements on this mountain passenger rail to increase frequency. You need things like sighting because this is the only existing rail corridor in this area. So you need to traffic control essentially. And there's a lot of freight still going that travels on this rail line. There's a lot of things to take into consideration. Getting from the eastern slope to the western slope requires access through the Moffat Tunnel, which is I think it's 7 miles. It's, I believe, the longest passenger rail tunnel in North America, but it's also needs to, as trains go through there, you have to give time between trains to vent out the air. All the diesel exhaust from the locomotives. And so there's a lot of logistics that go into the Moffat Tunnel pinch point. So that's why these discussions have been fairly heavy between CDOT and Union Pacific is the one who owns that rail line, but the state actually owns the state owns the Moffat Tunnel. So it's been a lot of negotiations. It's been a lot of work, and I am thrilled to death that November 26th we're going to see some mountain rail passenger service. So, did anybody have any questions? Like I said, there's a lot to cover on it, and I will do my best to answer. I have been involved since the beginning, so I feel like I have a fairly good grasp. But, I could talk for the next hour, or I could be done right now. There's just so much, there's so much information.
Any questions for Michael?
You can also reach out to after the meeting, if that's easy.
Thanks for coming, Michael. It's good to see you. I think it's been I think I saw you in the fall, so it's nice.
Yeah, it's been a while. Yeah, very nice to see everybody else on this call too.
Yeah, thanks. Hope you can keep coming to our meetings.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love that.
Excellent. I keep losing my agenda.
You're up.
I'm
It's
up.
a CASTA update.
Okay, since Anne can't be here, wanted to give folks an update on a letter that CASTA sent on behalf of several organizations around the state to Bustang, to CDOT and Bustang. This was through the Colorado Mobility Action Coalition through CASTA that I'm a part of. And I think maybe some of you on the call are as too. But we came up with some recommendations around Bustang, just really on how to expand its service capacity in not only bringing folks from Denver to the mountains and vice versa, but how can we utilize Bustang for potentially more paratransit services, for getting folks to medical appointments that live further away that maybe need to go to a specialist in Denver. So that took us a few months to pull together. We at Northwest COG and as the RTCC signed off on it, as well as the I-70 Coalition and several other organizations around the state. So I will keep everyone posted on that. But I think it was a really good group effort and a really great kind of exercise in listening to several organizations around the state and what they're seeing in their communities and how Bustang could potentially fill some gaps. Let's see. So CASTA does a transportation advocacy trip to DC every year. They are looking for one more person that wants to go. Actually, no, they're looking for a few more people. They only have one person. That is in March. I think March, that first week in March, I want to say the 3rd through the 6th. If you are potentially interested in going with Anne, I know there's some financial assistance available. Let me know or reach out to her directly. I think it's usually a really great trip. They've got lobbyists that they go with. And it sounds like it just is a really great learning experience for whoever ends up going. I put in here some transit legislation that was recently introduced, the Transit and Housing Investments Zone legislation, House Bill 261065. So I linked it there. I'm not great at summarizing these bills, but essentially it would create a mechanism for a local government to undertake some transit investment projects and designate areas in their communities where that project could be built. Creating a transit investment authority to me, which sounds similar to what RAFTA is, what CORE has. So really pulling in state sales tax in that area to create that area and improve housing as well as transportation. I don't know where this is at. I just saw that it was introduced a couple of weeks ago. I don't know if anyone else on the call maybe follows this a little more closely. I don't know, Jonathan, do you?
I've followed the last few iterations of it. I know CAST has opposed it the last few times it's come around because of implications to ski towns. But I don't know what this version looks like and what the stances are on it. It's been getting kicked around for 3 or 4 years now in one form or another. It hasn't quite made it through yet.
Well, hopefully we can get Anne on our next call to kind of give us more updates on the legislative side of things. The CASTA Spring Conference is coming up. It'll be in Boulder, May 12th through the 15th. They're also doing a mobility summit the day before the conference, which I've been a part of planning, and the town of Assault will actually be presenting at, which I'm super excited. I know we're still developing that agenda, so if anyone is interested in presenting around mobility, we're focusing more on mobility rather than transportation, which the spring conference is mostly more focused on transportation. So if you have something specific for mobility that you think would be a good fit for this conference, happy to chat and share with you like the topic areas and kind of a draft agenda. So there is also financial assistance for that conference. You can get a scholarship to attend. Would love to have folks go. It's always a good time, a good learning experience. So, yeah, I don't think registration is quite open yet, but the link that is in the agenda is where you'll go to register. And I'll keep folks updated, but you probably all get those emails anyways. I think that's it for me.
I just back to the DC trip thing.
Yeah.
I haven't been able to go myself, but I'll just pitch it quick that nobody in like this group is made up of the perfect folks to go on this trip. So like don't feel imposter syndrome about going to Washington and meeting with our senators and reps because these are y'all are just the kind of folks that really they need to hear from, and that Anne would love to have along. So, if that piqued your interest, take it seriously. Reach out to Anne. She'd love to have you.
Thanks, Sam.
All right, and then I think I'm up, so I'll roll into I'll keep this pretty brief and as diplomatic as I possibly can. I'm gonna just an update on what's going on with the Transportation Coalition for the 21st Century in the Roaring Fork Valley. This group's been kind of in and out of the news. If you follow news in the Roaring Fork Valley, they it's I don't personally sit on it. I have attended most of their meetings as an observer and occasional presenter. But the group's kind of it's made up of about 25 former elected officials, elected officials, concerned citizens, and business owners in the valley. They've come together. They created a goal of, and I'll use their words of eliminating traffic congestion in the Upper Roaring Fork Valley. They did it over the course of about 6 months. They hired a consultant and with some support from the Upper Valley government's financial support. They got a series of recommendations put together. There's about 10 recommendations, the first 8 of which are mostly TDM measures that this group has already talked about or is talking about, focused on things like carpooling and first last mile mobility, senior transportation, non-emergency medical transportation. The highlight though, and the thing that everybody's talking about is that their final 2 recommendations are for basically a toll lane, it would be a shared lane between high occupancy vehicles, buses, and those willing to pay the congestion price for that toll lane. And then their final 10th recommendation is to eventually move to a complete congestion toll in and out of Aspen, which would be dynamically priced and cost different amounts at different times of the day. This group was not, supported by the electorate. It wasn't put in with any sort of I don't know, governing ability. It's just a citizen group with a list of recommendations. They are going to take the list of recommendations now to the public throughout the valley, gather feedback. So not exactly sure what that process is going to look like, but it should start this spring. And hopefully, this folks in this group, whether they present to this group and we give them feedback directly or they reach out to folks individually for feedback. I think they're going to hear a lot of feedback. I can imagine what that feedback will sound like. As I said, I don't pretend to be part of the group, but I certainly can offer that as my most possibly diplomatic description of what's been going on. Y'all are capable of forming your own opinions, so you don't need to have me do that for you. Um, and yeah, that's what I got. Alicia, I don't know exactly how much they paid for the consultants. They did go to the elected bodies up here in Pickens County and get a financial contribution. I think that the contributions were in the $25,000 range for basically for food, for meeting space, and for the consultant. So I don't know how much they paid exactly for the consultant, but something that was covered by those contributions.
Very diplomatic, Sam. I would not have said it as
I
eloquently, so I appreciate you.
I'm happy to try to answer any questions. I know that there's a lot of strong feelings about this. I have strong feelings about it. That to be a little bit less diplomatic, that I thought that I was called to those meetings to give and was not asked to give. So they're that yeah. But happy to take questions, try to answer them in that diplomatic way. Alicia, their next steps are right now they're saying the step is to go to the citizens of the valley and the other groups like this one present their findings and recommendations and receive feedback. The gondola idea that there is somebody from the public formed a sort of a gondola feasibility committee. The gondola idea is, I believe, was determined to be impractical as it has been many times before. Thanks.
Thanks, Sam. Yes, Alicia, I went to their final meeting a couple weeks ago and did mention the CRV cohort folks down valley that the world doesn't end at Glenwood. So yeah, and also invited them to collaborate with the RTCC. So I definitely spoke up for the work that we're trying to achieve and how we are collaborating. Emily. Emily, do you want to talk about the TMO stakeholders meeting?
Yes, happy to. And I think, yeah, I want to highlight Jonathan's comment that he just put in the chat about the Transportation Coalition for the 21st Century, that there was an elected official from Carbondale, but there were no elected officials from Glenwood or anywhere beyond. So.
Oh, and I will say that Emily and Jonathan both attended a lot of those meetings. So if I misspoke on anything, please feel free to jump in. But yeah.
I don't think you misspoke, Sam. I will say that there were some voices, and Jonathan, feel free to hop in and then we can jump to my update. I would say that there were certainly voices in the room who acknowledged the need for more regional input. And there were strong voices recommending that if there was going to be a vote around hot lanes, that it should be a vote that included more than just residents of Aspen. So I will positively note that. Jonathan, do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've been beating the drum with that group from the beginning that they were formed. To be fair, they were formed with trying to solve the up valley congestion, but it's a pretty myopically focused, a very narrowly focused view on what the problem is, considering that however many percentage, a huge amount of the percentage of the traffic generated for the problem they're trying to solve is generated even west of Glenwood Springs. And they didn't really feel that it was important enough to have people on the committee. There was like the people on the committee got to sit in the round room or the inside table, and then people like Emily, me, Dana, Rafta were just kind of on the outside to pipe up every once in a while. And I think it was um, I would often say if you can solve Glenwood's traffic problem, you will solve your problem. And so this is an issue that, it's like addressing cancer by by dealing with a symptom and not going in and really dealing with the issue. And so I think they hopefully heard that, but I think just if they're going to go up and down the valley and hopefully into Western Garfield County to sell this or to get a vote or support of whatever kind, I think it would have been helpful 6 months ago when this group started if they would have included those people as a actual contributing member of their group rather than a box to check off. That being said, that's all water under the bridge. I think the bigger question is how can this, it's a good group and has a lot of promise, I think, really interesting, innovative, politically bold ideas that could be extended through Glenwood. And I think if that's the case, maybe this is just the first step. Again, I'm trying to be generous and helpful. If this is the first step in a larger region-wide conversation on how do we deal with TDM, how do we initiate this in other communities as a region, I think it's so interconnected that just talking about Brush Creek to the airport and the airport to the new bridge or not the new bridge, the Castle Creek Bridge, I just think they're missing a whole lot of boats. I think it's going to be dependent upon us and to really bang the drum and say, no, we have these issues. Help us solve our issues, because if you do, it really does solve your issues.
And I will add that they had started out the group by saying that they were going to give these recommendations, and they kind of talked about it as if like, oh, we're gonna come up with the solutions, we'll give them to Aspen and Picken County, and then they'll implement them. And they really did, after those last few conversations and the constant drum beating, change it to, oh, they're just recommendations, and we'll go out and talk to people and get some feedback. And so, I mean, I do think that there was that change seen. They heard it over and over again. So I am glad that it ended up there. I will say that the last time they did this was in 2019. It's called the Upper Valley Mobility Study. They didn't really invite everybody, and it still sits on the shelf with essentially exactly the same recommendations. So yeah, thanks, Jonathan.
Awesome. I'm going to dive quickly into our update from Clear. It dovetails well with this. Clear has a grant to explore forming a regional transportation management organization. We are looking at the Parachute to Aspen region as the travel shed, but whoever would like to be included. We are holding a stakeholder workshop on April 15th in Glenwood, and our hope for that workshop is to come up with a regional recommendation for a TMO structure and what that could look like. If you are interested in learning more or attending, I know lots of folks on this call have already heard about it, but please reach out to me. I will drop my email in the chat, and excited to explore what regional collaboration could look like for TDM, knowing that there are lots of different groups and lots of things going on, trying to pull some of those together. Does anyone have any immediate questions for me? Or if not, happy to follow up with folks individually.
Thanks,
Okay.
Emily.
I'll pass it back to you, Dana.
Thanks. Okay, some project updates for the RTCC. We have the Transit AI Launchpad workshop in March 12th through the 13th. It'll be in Eagle. And we have Winter Park Transit, Steamboat Springs Transit, Core, Summit Stage, and then Summit County Community and Senior Center. Our goals for that workshop are going to be kind of a twofold. So coming out with some regional regionally identify gaps for the Northwest Cog region, so our massive 7 county area, and how using AI to address those gaps can really help. And then also for the individual organizations to come out with new tools and ways to address transportation in their own communities. We'll be doing some kickoff meetings for that, hopefully next week, just to make sure that the workshop achieves those goals and that everyone gives their input. So next week, John, who's our executive director at the COG, is going to facilitate some more in-depth strategic planning for myself, Sam, Mary, Mandy, and Hope, kind of the leadership team of the RTCC, just breaking down several of the projects that we identified 2 Novembers ago, seeing, what is actually doable, putting some concrete activities to those projects, and then having something to present to you all to help move some of this stuff a little bit more forward. Sam, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, just a couple of things. One is, Dana pointed out in the chat that, I think we're talking about divergent transportation groups. There's 10 or 12 of them probably in the valley at this point that are coming coming forward with all kinds of different plans. Some of them work well together, some of them are exactly the same as each other, and others are working in opposite directions. And I think that maybe next Tuesday is a good opportunity for us to talk about how does the RTCC fit into all these regional efforts beyond the Roaring Fork Valley and Colorado River Valley, possibly even. So. I do, unless anybody in the group is opposed to us talking about how RTCC maybe can be more involved in that, I think that would be a good thing for to come up, because boy, if we could pull a lot of this stuff together and kind of house it in one spot and get everybody working together, I think that these efforts would be a lot more fruitful and we'd have less plans sitting on the shelf or not made at all. And then I also wanted to add that I think, I love these meetings. I think it's great that we're all able to keep everybody informed on what we've got going on. But I think, that this leadership strategic planning session, my hope out of it is that we're able to make it feel really valuable for all of you being here, every quarter.
Thanks, Sam. That kind of ties nicely into continuing to talk about regional carpooling initiatives. I think there's a lot of talk around that. There are some people that are just doing it on their own. But I think for an entire region as a whole, carpooling is something that could be some low-hanging fruit, solving a lot of traffic congestion, getting folks off the road, in our entire COG region. So there's been some smaller conversations with other folks in transportation groups that are super interested, potentially providing some funding. I think that will take a little while, but I am pulling together some information and having more in-depth conversations with them over the coming months to see what that might look like. So more to come on that. It's not dead in the water. I think it's just it's a slow initiative and there's not a lot of state funding for carpooling. And I think folks are a little hesitant because there's not enough information coming from the community as far as would the community actually use this? Is this effective within other communities? So yeah, stay tuned for that. I think there's some potential there. And then last from me, so our Northwest COG Executive Committee, so we have our COG Council and then we have a smaller executive committee. There are 2 municipal seats up for that. Would love to have some folks in transportation that are part of a municipality that would want to sit on this executive committee. I can send more information as far as what those responsibilities look like, but it's attending 7 meetings a year. It's helping to make programming decisions, budget decisions. Oh, I think I did attach the bylaws. They're in there. So if you're interested, I think that group is missing some transportation voices to represent the Northwest COG as a whole. So let me know. Happy to share more and yeah, get you to participate. I have a spelling error in this agenda. Sorry, guys. Do we have any other updates from folks that did not present?
So that's how you make up time on an agenda right there.
Holy moly, right? No one else? Okay. Well, we won't hold you here until
Yeah.
time runs out.
Thanks everybody for showing up. I mean, I think that these meetings, like I said, I just hearing what's going on in the valley is super, not just the valley, sorry, the region is super valuable to the valley, to and to myself. So I plan on bringing this stuff back to staff and helping out however we can. So thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Good day.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thank you.